p.m. This is Tuesday, June 6th, 2023. This is the Bluff Town Council regular meeting. Roll call. Linda Sosa,
Jim Sayers.
Nook.
Brant Murray.
Luanne, you're muted.
Yeah, I went after Sayers.
Oh, I didn't hear it. Okay. Ann Leppanen,
Erin Nelson serving as town manager.
So the first item is the approval of the Bluff Town Council regular meeting minutes of May 16th, 2023. Did everyone receive them? Have you read them, and are there any changes, modifications, comments?
Motion to approve.
I'll second that, Mayor.
Any discussion? Then all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. Then the second is approval of Bluff Town Council work session minutes of May 17th, 2023. Has everybody received them? Have you read them? And are there any comments?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. I'd like to take a minute to talk about public comment. First, there will be a 3-minute time limit for each person wishing to comment. If you exceed the 3-minute time limit without permission, the meeting controller will mute you. So after sitting through a couple of public hearings, one of which was a Bluff public hearing, it came to my attention that there are two pieces that we have left off of the kind of the script that Amanda Podmore from Planning and Zoning so nicely organized about what the rules are for public comment. And so I'm going to propose to the council, this is a heads up to the council, I'm going to propose to the council that next week we discuss and vote on a change to how we handle public comment. And that would be that, first of all, if someone is making a public comment, it is not an opportunity to have a discussion with the audience. All of the comments should be addressed to the public body. You run a real risk of turning something that hasn't been announced or agenda'd into being I want to say unpublished, but that's not the word, on something that's not on our agenda. So all comments that will be included. I've spoken with Amanda Podmore and we're putting together her nice list and adding these two comments. The second is we're going to do random public comments. And that means that no one will have the privilege or the benefit of speaking first or last at their choosing. I think that that's the fairest way to propose this. And again, I will write it out. I will ask for discussion and vote. And I'm asking that you consider looking at these rules and making these a part of all of our public hearings. We can't change it tonight, but I'm just giving everyone a heads up that I'm proposing, in addition to Planning and Zoning's very good script, we add these 2 points. I have yet to work out the details of how you do random public comment, but I believe there may be a computer program that assigns a number as people raise their hands or say something, and we would do it similar to what the commission does. There will be a cutoff point 5 or 10 minutes before the meeting starts so we can be organized for that. With that in mind, then, public comment. Does anyone in the public wish to make a comment? And if so, if you can let us know. And I'm trusting that Erin's watching the screen because I usually miss it. We'll wait a minute and make sure that everyone's had their opportunity. All right, it's 6:15. We'll move into unfinished business. And the first thing is the update on Active Transportation Plan Advisory Committee, which is Molly Schmidt and Luanne Hook. And we've allotted 15 minutes. And if that's not enough, we'll kind of see where the adjustments need to be made. But Molly and Luanne, go ahead.
Hey everyone, thanks for being here. I don't think it'll take more time than that. I am going to share my screen. So the goal, let's see. Really the goal of this update is to let everyone know where we're at and also how we can engage with the public with public comment. So thank you, Ann, for starting us off with that. So right now, for those of you who aren't familiar, I just wanted to give a quick history of this project. It started in 2020 through the Citizens Institute of Rural Design. And then more recently, in July of last year, the town voted to create the Active Transportation Advisory Committee. Actually, some of these numbers this should say July 2023. No, 22.
22.
Yes. And then we, in August, the town of Bluff partnered with Bike Utah to create an active transportation plan. In November, we put together our active transportation stakeholder group. And then more recently in March, we facilitated with Bike Utah 3 workshops for the Bluff Elementary School, residents of Bluff, and government and local organizations to get feedback specifically on a map, and then also values and different projects that the community wanted to see included in the active transportation plan. Now we're in this process right now. Oh, and we've also, our committee was part of the town of Bluff strategic planning process so that we can align these goals for future development. So overall, our idea, which is the timeline's changing a little bit, but was that in the spring, Bike Utah would facilitate these community workshops. In the summer, we would finalize an active transportation plan, and our committee would work to come to a finalized active transportation map and also a project phase strategy for applying for grants. In the fall, we expect that the plan will be done and it will go through a public approval process through the town council. And then we will continue to work on implementing a grant strategy. And then in the spring, we'll really be working on grant applications and engineering evaluations. So right now, we have 2 goals, which is getting to a finalized map and then really defining what those project phases are so we can plan our grant strategy. How we are going to get to a map is through different rounds of edits. And so from May 30th to June 27th, there'll be the first round of edits. And this will be by the Active Transportation Committee and the Active Transportation Stakeholder Group. So we're currently looking at the first draft of a map that Bike Utah put together. And the reason why we want to be the first eyes on it is because, one, we feel like there's enough people between the committee and the stakeholder group that represent a diverse amount of voices in Bluff. And also there's just some things to clarify with Bike Utah, like specific rights of way or property lines that might not have been clear in the GIS map. And so there's just like, I guess, more admin type of things that can be cleared up before it goes to public comment. So round 2 of edits, we will make a map available from June 30th to July 10th for the residents of Bluff to give open comment and feedback on. And then after that period, we will update the map, and in a round 3, take that map to the town council to vote. Now, this is a timeline I think maps well onto our phase and grant strategy approach, and I'm also open to feedback on this timeline. So this is not set in stone. How we're managing public comment is that we will receive a public comment. So if you would like to give public comment, then you can email the active transportation at townofbluff.org. And then we save in that email or that map or whatever you want to send us. We save it in our committee Google Drive for record, and then we are accountable to responding to you via Outlook and then CCing the rest of the committee. Project phases. So our project won't get funded all at once, and I don't know if we could manage funding it all at once anyways. So we have to break our project into phases. This will be based on community feedback, largely in part what we heard in the community meetings in March. Bike Utah is going to propose a project phase plan by July 11th, and that will be included in the active transportation plan. Now, to qualify for upcoming grants, UDOT requires a transportation plan. Our plan will be completed until September. However, Chris Hall, our UDOT Region 4 director, he's verified that we can apply for grants with an approved active transportation map by the town of Bluff. And so even though we don't have the plan, if we can get to an approved map through what I've suggested with these round of edits, then we are eligible to apply for grants with a map. Just to give you an idea of what it might cost us, which will be considered in how we phase the project, is a multi-use path. So that is a protected pathway off of the main highway for different uses for biking or walking. Motorized and non-motorized is like a whole separate issue that I don't want to get into here, but right now we're talking about walking and biking path. It's about $1 million per mile. Now, Chris Wiltsey from Bike Utah thinks this is actually it will be cheaper in rural areas. That's kind of an estimate for urban areas. But a footbridge will most likely be about $1,000 per foot. For the grant strategy, there's 3 grants that we're looking at right now, and we can approach them in different ways. So there's the TIF Active Transportation Grant, and that does require a match. U.org will provide 80%. Oh, sorry. I'm getting messed up a little bit. The town of Bluff would have to match with 40%. However, Chris Wiltsey let me know today that right-of-way could be part of the match. It's not only monetary matches. It could also be right-of-way. And we don't know the exact timeline when this will come out, but the estimate is sometime this month. Now, there's something called the ATIF grant, the active, I don't know why they name them so similarly, but this is basically the governor's grant. And this is a new grant. It does not require a match. And from what we've been told, it will be crafted with unlimited funds to apply. It's supposed to come out sometime this fiscal year, and it can be used as a match for other grants. The third grant that we're looking at is a Utah Outdoor Recreation Grant, and this requires a 20% match. And we can apply with any type of project from about $200K to $750K. This grant opens in January, and applications are due in March 2024. So knowing the landscape of these grants, we could take the approach of waiting for the governor's grant or this ATIF grant to come out because it does not require a match. Another strategy is using the ATIF grant as a match for other grants. So we could apply for the TIF grant and the outdoor recreation grant and use the governor's grant to be the match for all of those. So it's kind of tricky to figure out the approach, and I do think a grant writer is in our future. We as a committee are still talking to Utah Outdoor Recreation Grant, Chris Hall, Chris Wiltsey from Bike Utah to figure out what the right approach would be. If we do apply for the TIF grant, which is the one that is due the soonest, in July, we would need to apply most likely with a smaller scale project such as the footbridge, because that would be less of a match than say something like all of Main Street using the multi-use path. That would be a much larger expense. So if we wanted to apply with a smaller project like the footbridge, then we could use the Utah Outdoor Recreation Grant as our match. So that would be the soonest action that we would have to decide to take.
Molly, I've got a question. You mentioned being qualified from UDOT to have a map. When does that do? What does that map do?
Sure. So that's a great question, Grant. So it's up to us. I guess that's why I've proposed this timeline for getting a map approved by July 18th, because I believe that we would then be able to apply with that map with the TIF grant. Does that answer your question?
It does, thank you. And a lot of good work went into this. There's a lot of questions, and sometimes, as we all know, you just have to be patient to see what's coming sooner, and I'm worried about that 18th deadline for this TIF grant.
Well, so just to clarify, Brant, the TIF grant, we know it's not been opened yet by UDOT. So Chris Hall told us it will be open sometime this month. And then from that point, there'll be, I think, 4 to 6 weeks or 4 to 8 weeks to apply. And so that's why I think if we can get to, I've worked out a timeline to get an approved map by the 18th so that we can use that map to apply for the TIF grant. So I think the TIF grant will most likely, the deadline will be sometime at the end of July. And I'm hoping to get ahead of that by getting to an approved map by July 18th.
Luanne?
Yeah, Molly, well, all of you actually. One of the things that we talked with UDOT and with the outdoor rec people was that if we do go ahead and apply for one of these smaller projects, and we were talking about the North Footbridge that would be able to tie people from one side of the town to the other without having to come down to the highway. So it's a safety thing for kids. It's a recreational thing for adults and kids to be able to connect both sides of town. So if they did sort of advise that if we apply for that, it keeps us kind of in front of their minds for being available to do the big project that the governor is trying to propose. And he wants to connect, town after town. So if we had done a small stretch already and have the wheels going, it would look stronger for be able to get the other part going quicker. It will be competitive.
How long is that bridge? How long is the footbridge? I know how much it is per foot. I just want to know how long it is.
We need to measure the bridge right there at the highway bridge. And I'm just guessing that, I don't know, how long is that highway bridge? I don't think it's 200 feet.
We'll find out. We'll find out.
Okay, yeah, because we need to measure that one for an example, because it does have to be anchored in. And a footbridge, in their mind, is big enough to take like a four-wheeler across. You cannot, it's foot traffic. But in an emergency, you could cross the wash on that other bridge if the other one had hazards or went out or whatever. You could get at least somebody across. You couldn't take an ambulance or anything, but they build it about 10 feet wide and then, secure on the sides and whatnot.
All righty.
Yeah.
I'm worried about that. I'm worried about that myself. I'm not sold on that idea yet.
Well, are there any other questions for Molly or Luanne about the process and where they're at right now? So
And I think
it
Molly
might be-
I just want to say Molly did a really good overview of what we've been working on for the last while. We've got a really good focus group and a really great committee working on it. So it's thanks, Molly, because that was really clear and concise.
Yeah, it sounds to me like this is probably something that would be really useful before we start looking at trying to approve some kind of map, is to do a brief work session where we're jointly all in the same place so we can get the details like Brant is asking for. It sounds like there's still a fair amount of fleshing out to do. And I think that would be really useful. So we do have a work session, discussion on the agenda. So let's talk about this a little bit more then. Any other questions for Luanne or Molly about this?
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Molly. That was a great presentation. Thanks, Lou.
Yep, you're welcome. It's a good project. So thanks for letting us work on it.
Number 2, discussion of Jenny Burns Bluff Food Pantry and Building Resilient Inclusive Communities grant of $13,500. About 3 months ago, San Juan County Commission approved the public health brick grant to the food pantry in an unknown amount. The food pantry had spent the $10,000 that was allocated this past year, and a couple months went by. I finally gave a couple questions to the public health director to find out if this grant was actually coming, and there was just a administrative glitch, so the check came in for $13,500. So I was hoping today to be able to tell you that I had it all wrapped up with San Juan County, but there's still one piece of information lacking. But basically, we'll be doing the same thing that we've done before. This is just an extension of the same agreement that we have with San Juan County to be a pass-through. So we would take the $13,500, parcel it out at $2,500 each until we got to the last, and then gave a slightly bigger contribution. The piece I'm waiting on is confirming the date for expenditure. We received the check yesterday, and I've been told that it has to be spent by July, the end of the month of July of 2023, and I have to work with Ginny to have it reported by August 1. So I'm talking with Matt McDonald to get the.
Mayor, do you need a motion to get this moving?
No, we approved it, and so we've got the mechanism in place. It's a matter of getting the detail, and then we'll need a motion probably next week to be able to approve the first transfer, and then the subsequent ones. We'll do it all in one motion. But thanks, Brant. So, any questions about the pass-through? Thank you, Ginny Burns, and all the volunteers that work with her on the board. It's great. Then we're going to move to number 3, update on results of the mock drill for an active shooter at the Bluff Elementary School. And I believe that Aaron is going to defer this to Gary Lichtenstein. So, Gary, why don't you approach, and then you'll be able to talk in here.
So I can just turn it around and you can see folks and they can see you. You're way down there.
Do you want a chair?
Oh, this is fine. So, okay. Hello, everyone. I'm still Gary Lichtenstein, Assistant Chief, Fire, Bluff Fire. And back in 2011, I started discussions with Barbara Silversmith, principal at Bluff Elementary at the old school. And that sparked a series of meetings to create all hazards emergency response, whatever might happen to the school. We had 5 response protocols, everything from evacuating the school to evacuating the site to active shooter to shelter in place and reverse evacuation. And the school has continued practicing those protocols, and they're pretty amazing. They are just exquisite. And we haven't revisited those protocols since the new school, since they moved to the new school. So I'll just mention that in 2013, we held an all-agency drill at the old Bluff School Elementary. And that was really helpful for not just practicing our protocols, but establishing and strengthening our relationship across all the emergency response agencies. So after a series of meetings beginning last November, back at the new school, involving Bluff Fire, San Juan School District, emergency EMS, and law enforcement, it culminated in a mock drill on the 31st of May. And we had about 28 law enforcement down here, which was pretty amazing. And working with them was absolutely wonderful. It was a real simulation. There were no students involved. The staff have a very well-practiced actions that they've been doing for several years, but even several months in the new school. And they know the lockdown procedure really well. It was up to us on emergency services to get up to speed. The law enforcement went in there with an active shooter who was a deputy shooting paintballs and blanks, and the deputies who came in shooting blanks also. So there's a lot of noise, and that created a lot of stress, not just for some of the law enforcement, but also for the staff who were going through the motions as if their students were with them. Law enforcement did 3 evolutions, so all their deputies could get practice in the different scenario, finding and taking down a shooter. We had a wonderful team of parents here at the community center volunteering, including Aaron and who else was there? Luanne was there, Marcia and Von Haydenfeld, my wife Kay. And one of the key things that sparked the discussions that led to this event was Uvalde in Texas, which shifted the narrative about if there's an active shooter, parents thinking in their minds, if I don't do something, no one will. So we really wanted to have a high presence and let everyone in the community know that no, these law enforcement officers are going to go in, even if it's one person. The first person gets there, goes in there, and the others follow until the shooter's taken care of. And one of the ways that we can make sure that happens is we divert parents from the school to the extent possible here to the community center. So we practice that drill with a series of volunteers who are linked through an app. And should we get a page that involves this sort of scenario, they will come, they'll open the community center, and they'll be able to receive parents. And as soon as law enforcement and ambulances are available, they'll come up here also. Meantime, we'll be exchanging information with what we know is going on at the school. And all that was practiced, and we all thought that it went very well for a first go. And we also learned some really valuable lessons that we'll be refining. I've debriefed with all the groups, and you can read about it in tomorrow's San Juan Record.
Well,
So, yeah.
well, does anybody have any questions for Gary at all?
Thank you, Gary.
Most welcome. Most welcome.
Very important.
Unfortunately, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the fact that people are willing to practice this and be up to speed so that should we ever be faced with that, people know their roles. And I'm sorry I wasn't able to be here, but I know that everybody was in great hands with Aaron and Gary and the fire department. And I don't think we can thank everyone who participated enough for doing that. And it is scary that you have to have this in your mind, but better prepared. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I will say that you never know who's going to be around when this happens, right?
Right.
And we've benefited from having a lot of people in town who are really thoughtful, keep a cool head. We do tragedy really well here. And so that helps everyone. And that was really evident in the drill. We worked really well across agencies, and it's strengthened our relationships already. So
That's good. Well, thank you, and thank you to everyone who participated. It's sad but amazing. Thank you.
Great work, Gary.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and the joint effort with the county was amazing, and the Utah Highway Patrol. I mean, they're just, and the BLM. I mean, there were just so many people that came to town to get involved that it was really amazing that pulled that many people in to do this drill.
It was surreal to see that many emergency response vehicles in Bluff. Like, surreal.
Like back to the bad guys days, you know, so.
I think before the next one is done, though, I'm going to shut my phone off to avoid all the texts of the people who didn't read the alert that we were doing this. Do you know what's happening at the school? Why are all these police here? What's the ambulance doing?
Wow.
It's like, okay,
Still receiving.
yeah, please read your emails. All right.
You know, that might be just a thought, Gary. Maybe they should put that on their sign on the days they're going to do some big drill like that, just so that people driving by that little marquee.
Yeah, good idea. We're going for October, so
Yeah.
we'll keep it in mind.
Okay.
Hopefully not October 14th, the day of the eclipse.
Yeah, just don't let it be
right.
the 13th.
We won't do it.
Thanks, Gary.
20,000
That was
people.
my mind too. I'm like, not that week.
All right. Number 4, update on the Cooperative Cultural Centers meetings and discuss and vote on the use of the grant money from the state of Utah to demolish the ceiling at the Cooperative Cultural Center, and then a review and vote on the bid process. Jim, do you want to just do the quick update on where we are with meetings? You're muted. You're muted.
I better not do it. I can talk about the grant and the demolishing a little bit here. We got the cultural capital grant about 6 months ago, and we sort of lost sight of the fact that it had a timeline on it, and the state is now kind of on this and wants us to use the money. The grant was for $79,000. The only thing we can really do for it right now is demolish the ceiling. We reviewed the estimate for the fire suppression system, and it does not include demolishing. And the consensus on the DRC and as we've gone along is that the ceiling is going to go. We're going to bring in a sort of an industrial look with all the exposed ductwork and pipes. So the ceiling has got to go, and regardless, it would have to go because it's junk. So we are getting a bid process in place and want to get that expedited, and so we can spend as much of that money as we can before we probably have to return the remainder. Is that pretty fair to say, Mayor?
It is. I think that Aaron reminded me that part of the cost is probably paying for the asbestos inspection out of that money, because we had to have the asbestos inspection to know that we didn't have asbestos in the ceiling tiles. So I think we'll be able to roll that over. I think too that it's important to keep in mind that with having a short time frame from when we got the money to the June 30th cutoff date, we'll be moving pretty quickly on getting bids under our procurement policy. The ad will run in the San Juan Record this week, and we'll post on the Utah Public Notice website. So if anyone listening to this is interested in putting in a bid, or they know somebody who could put in a bid, the process should be up and running sometime this week, and then we'll be able to use it, which makes the assumption that we're going to vote tonight on the use of the grant money to do this, and then vote separately on the bid process. So any questions or thoughts from the council on the demolition piece or the grant? All
I
right.
think that's a wise way to move forward. So I support that. What was which grant was this? Which was the name of this one? Is this a
Cultural Capital. It was called the Cultural Capital Grant. It was sort of a one-off opportunity from the state of Utah
Right.
for little projects for small communities. There was no match involved. You just had to sell them on it. That
You know,
sounds like a motion. Brant, was that a motion to approve the?
it is. So moved.
I will second that.
Any other questions or discussions? All in favor say aye to use the grant money just described to demolish the ceiling and related other demolishment things.
Great. Yes.
Aye.
I,
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. Then we'll move to review and vote on the bid process, and I'll have Aaron take that over and describe what we need to do to move this along.
So in your procurement policy that we reviewed earlier this calendar year, you have a couple different thresholds. You've got small purchases, some minor purchases, and then pretty big expenditures. And so your threshold to start sealed bidding is currently set at $80,000. So given the money that you have available to spend, this would fall just short of requiring a sealed bid process. So that means that we can kind of go through just a competitive proposal. So what I recommend is that we have a standardized form that any interested bidders would fill out so you can compare apples to apples of what you're getting. Have some requirements for the bidders in terms of a description, scope of work, all that good stuff. I would recommend that you ensure that they have insurance, and then past that, it would need to come to town council to approve. And so, what I would like to propose is that we open that bid process probably this week. And because of the incredibly tight turnaround, I would say that we probably close it by June 15th. I do think that I am highly recommending that you call either a special meeting or adding a meeting to assign a contract, to go through those bids and assign a contract. So again, not sealed bid process, so we don't have to go through all of that, but you still need to evaluate the proposals and approve and do a contract. So again, very expedited. I would say probably the 15th.
I'd like to make a motion that we do that, Mayor.
I would second that motion with the possible provision that if you can work into the motion that a bidder who can expedite this it may be preferred in some way. That would be valuable, I think. We want somebody who can do this, but not put it off for 3 months.
So we're going to say time is of the essence in my motion, and the work needs to begin on June 16th. Is that right?
ASAP.
I would say as soon as possible after the contract is signed, that they start on that.
Okay, it's included.
Yep, second there.
All right.
when does it need to be finished? Maybe is more important as to when they start.
So what the state told us is, first of all, when we reached out to say, can we use demolition as a part of this, which is a preparation to being able to put in the fire suppression and the sprinklers, they said yes. When we asked, is there a time frame? Does it have to be entirely used? No, but they would prefer as much as possible be used, and then we can probably get the extension to get it finished. In an ideal world, we would get the bids closed on the 15th, hold a special meeting on the 16th, pick a bid, sign on the 19th, and get someone started. So we're in a tight turnaround.
Does my motion apply to all that, Mayor?
Yes.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, so my question isn't so much about when they start, but like they'll need to finish and then they need to submit the bill and then they need paid.
So for us on the accrual accounting system, if they perform the work in the month of June, it would fall into this fiscal year for us and for the state. it does sound as though, as kind of Ann described, it sounds as though we might have a little bit of an extension into July. I'm seeing that the very last that we can submit our reporting back to the state would be at the end of July. But I would strongly advise the council and any potential bidders to try to complete the work as much as possible in the month of June, so we can say that accrual-wise, it occurred in this fiscal year.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
So all in favor, say aye. Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. All right, moving to number 5, update on Bluff Airport maintenance with Javiation and UDOT. In the budget piece, I just updated folks as to why the amount on the airport maintenance went from our contribution of 14,000 to the full amount of the project. And for those folks who weren't in the budget meeting, you'll see a line in the budget for an revenue and expenditure related to the full amount of the contract work, which is 138,000 roughly. But that's because we have to pay, we are expected to pay it out first and then get reimbursed, or get the reimbursement from UDOT and then pay it out. So we'll be able to work with that, but that's kind of that update. I don't know. I understand that the work started today and will end tomorrow on the first phase. And if that's accurate, based on the email I saw today, if the airport manager is on, if he needs to correct me or add something, this would be a good time.
It starts tomorrow and ends Thursday night.
Thank you. I knew you'd know. So there's nobody landing or taking off during that time, right?
That's right. We've closed the airport for in or out or any use on the ramp for those 2 days.
All right. Then thank you. That's the update. And then they'll do painting or the rest of the job later on, hopefully in this month.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate that work.
All right. Number 6, review of the form for residents' use on mosquito abatement process and vote on the form. So I'll turn this over to Aaron because we have moisture.
We do. So, and I don't think Malia's on as our community center manager, but essentially, there's a mosquito abatement program through the state. The town is a part of that, and so we have pellets that we can distribute. Now, these are they are pretty. Should really have Malia on to describe this, but essentially they're regulated substances, and therefore we need residents to sign a release for them if we are going to be handing them over to a resident. And so on the form that you all received, it essentially is not a waiver, but a release of these products. And it essentially just it says that I understand that the resident would only be able to use them on their personal property. The town of Bluff is not able to put them on personal property. If you have any questions, Malia is able to hook you up. But essentially, I'm asking the council to approve the release form. And then for residents, just as an FYI, that we have those resources available. And you could speak to Malia Collins about that. And just as a general notice, please take care of any standing water on your property to try to keep our mosquitoes in check.
So moved.
So has everybody reviewed the form, and are there any questions about the form? Because you know when the pellets start going out, there will be questions. So everybody's okay with this?
Yeah.
It's required. It's a required registration for a pesticide. The way it works is it's an alkali that the mosquito larvae eat. It eats through their stomach and is re-released in the water supply. It's a benign thing. It's the same stuff that we administered for the last few years. So I'll make my motion.
What is the motion?
We'll approve Aaron's form.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. Number 7, discuss and vote on the agreement with San Juan County to run Bluff's 2023 election. So in the past, when Bluff has had San Juan County run the elections, in 2019 and 2021, let's just say it was a mess. And I'm still sorting out the mess with 2019. I think if I get 2019 bill sorted out, then I'll be ready on the 2021 to approve payment of that. But moving forward, we have an interlocal cooperation agreement for municipal election services, which was sent out to you, and I'd like to have a vote and permission to sign this. What it does is it commits us to paying for the cost of running the 2023 primary election if we need it, and the 2023 general election, which we will need. So they give estimates of approximately $1,544.75 for the primary, and then for the general, it's $1,344.75. So if we need a primary and a general, estimated is roughly $3,000.
Mayor, I'll make that motion for you.
So does anybody,
3,000?
what's that?
3,000?
Roughly.
That's,
Now,
it may just be 1,300.
no, if it's both, it's roughly 3,000, and we're not voting on the amount, we're voting on whether or not I should sign this that commits us to possibly paying these quote, end quote estimates, because these are quotes. I will point out, prior to the current administrator, the quote I received for the 2019 was approximately $1,000, and it is just short of either $3,000 or $4,000, which is why I'm going back and forth on the 2019. This, I feel fairly comfortable. In fact, I feel very comfortable that the ballpark estimates will be what we're given, somewhere in that relative ballpark.
So do I. That's why the motion.
I second the emotion. The emotion. The emotion.
Any questions or thoughts on it? And if anybody on the council cares to engage on this 2019 bill with me, I'd be happy to have reinforcement. All right, all in favor of my signing the election commitment for 2023, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. Now, this is a good time to just make the announcement. Tomorrow is the last day to declare your candidacy. Otherwise, if you decide you want to run, you're going to have to do it as a write-in. The declaration period will close at 5 o'clock tomorrow, 5 p.m. tomorrow here in the Bluff Town office. If you are not here and completed your paperwork by 5 o'clock, we cannot take it. So allow for that time, just in case we have a run on applicants or declarants. Linda and I will both be in the vicinity so that we can pick up anything more than one-on-one, so that nobody gets turned away just because we didn't have enough people here. I think that covers the election. Then number 8 is discussion and approval of the fraud risk assessment that we do every year. And Erin, I'll turn to you so that I can sign off on this.
Sure. So we do complete the fraud risk assessment annually. So we are completing the packet that the document that you received in your packet is for this fiscal year ending at the end of June. And essentially what we're seeing is actually an increase in our total points earned over previous years. because we have an additional travel policy. There's something else in there that we got some extra points for this year. But essentially, you're scored out of 395. We're at a 370 based on all the policies and procedures that you all have put in place. And so our risk assessment is considered very low because we have a score greater than 355. So we're actually doing quite well. So that is the risk assessment from an accounting standpoint. Does anyone have any questions or concerns?
Just congratulations. Good job.
Thank you guys for putting all of the procedures in place, and thank you to the team for following them. That's always a good thing. Does that have to be voted upon or anything?
Yes, we should vote on that. Is there a motion to approve the fraud risk assessment?
Motion to approve the fraud risk assessment.
I'll second that, Mayor.
All in favor say aye. Aye.
I,
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. So then this goes to both our accountant and it gets posted on the website. It also goes to Utah Local Government Trust because they also want to see what our risk assessment is. All right. Then the next agenda item is a discussion of a master fee schedule for town services and functions. This is in here more as a heads up as to what we need to have a work session on. We have this resolution that Chris McEnany and Aaron worked on, filling out some possibilities of fees. As the town is growing and we're having more land use clearances and site plan reviews that are larger in scale than a tiny house, we really should be collecting some fees for the amount of staff time and work that's going into these. And then the basic other kinds of fees you can have. This is not in any way a done resolution. It is something for your consideration so that when we get to the question of a work session, you'll know that that's part of what we need to build in. We'd like to get a fee schedule if we're going to have one, and that's the first question, do we want one? And then if we do, get that fee schedule in place sometime in July so we can begin collecting fees for services that we provide.
You need a motion on that?
No, because what we'll do, Jim, is just use this as a jump off point to talk about setting the work session to discuss this.
Okay. Sounds good.
And feel free, for the work session to go through and say, I like this, I don't like this, we should add this. I think this is a discussion, and it could be that the majority doesn't want a fee schedule. So I don't know. But we've been holding off on doing this for a while. So moving to number 10, if there's no other comments on that. We received the UDOT temporary right-of-way for Sand Island Bridge Repair Project. It's this pretty standard BLM notice that they're going to be doing work, approving work with UDOT on the Sand Island Bridge. There's a map with it showing the bridge over the river. It identifies the sites that were found in the in the review, in the environmental reviews. I'm drawing a blank on the name, but the 3 areas. If anybody wants to weigh into this, we can do that. Otherwise, if you think that there's not anything further that we need to do, we'll just let them do their work. Otherwise, we can put this on the work session and get a public comment letter to them.
I don't know. I think that these people know what they're doing. They know what the problems are with the bridge. It's very technical, and I don't really, I think we ought to just let the people who know what they're doing do what they know how to do.
I'd be interested to find out when the closures are planned. I know they worked on it 3 summers ago. They had some stuff on there, but we need to find out when the closures are for commuters and stuff.
I think that's probably more of a UDOT question than a BLM question. This is on the archaeological pieces of the location that it's at. So we could certainly ask ask UDOT that. Any other discussion on that? Well, there are a couple of things moving to item 11. I'd really like to set a work session. I know that there are several things that we will need to be discussing, including a fee schedule. I know everybody's wanting to take summer vacations. I'm going to actually be gone for a period of time, the end of June, the first part of July. So how does, and I know Brant, you're out of town most of June, leaving soon.
I'm leaving tomorrow.
Do you have an estimated time that you're coming back, or is that just kind of?
I think the 25th or 26th, Mayor, just tentatively. That should be accurate.
I'm going to be leaving the 24th. So we could do it before I leave, and then you could weigh in virtually. I'll have a harder time weighing in that first part of my trip just because of where I'll be. How does everybody else look in June?
June works for me, just to kind of jump in here. That last week before I get back, I'll be traveling to get back driving, so it may be a little more difficult. But you guys decide, I'll be there.
You know, what I would throw out, if people are okay with it, would be, what if we did a work session on Tuesday the 13th? So next week, so if there are questions to iron out on the 2023 budget or the 2024 budget, we can talk about them in a work session and be ready to just pass our budgets.
What time on the 13th would be good? Morning, I hope.
Throw out a time. Do you have anything scheduled on the 13th?
I'm retired. Time means nothing to me.
I like the 10:30.
There's a meeting,
10:30 sounds great.
11.
And
Sorry.
lunchtime,
You have?
Carolina.
Today, she said 45 minutes. So how about if we do it at 11 then, because meditation's in here until 11:45.
That'd be fine.
Okay, so 11 on the 13th. Linda's in the other room taking minutes because she needed to have a plug to plug her computer in, but I don't see her coming out to tell me that that wouldn't work. So let's set it for June 13th, which is a Tuesday at 11 o'clock. And I'll try to keep the agendas just exactly as short as possible so we're not covering too much. And Linda, you have the financials?
So just 1 second. As far as like reviewing the map and whatnot, are we going to put that off until July for the active transportation map? That would probably be better in like the first or second week of July. I think
We have a 4 p.m. meeting on the 13th of the Active Transportation Committee.
right.
It's
And so
part
I
of the
think,
timeline.
and so just the approval time was going to be July 18th was when she was hoping to get it to town council. So we can do another work session sometime in July for that. Is that
So,
on this?
so I didn't get a sense as to where the map was actually at. The sense I was left with was the map was a work in progress. And it seems to me like the recommendation should come from the Active Transportation Committee saying, now we've got a map that we'd like to propose rather than okay, so I'll fast forward. What I could see happening is we do a work session, we hand off, these are our thoughts, and then Active Transportation goes, well, that's not what we're thinking.
No, yeah, I just want to make sure that we're not missing our timing, but I think that we need one in June, but then we'll probably need one in July as well.
I have a feeling, Lou, that given the level of things coming at us right now that we will need at least one work session in July, maybe two, and they're going to be long. So, yeah,
Okay.
we'll make room for them. Just keep on top of me, okay?
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Do you need a motion on the work session?
Nope, we're good.
Okay.
All right, Linda, the financials.
We have one bill, and it was mentioned earlier. It is the bill for the asbestos inspection, and so we need to vote to pay it.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so I'm going to throw in just one caveat. That added to that motion would be preferably from the grant money that we're holding, and if not, then from our regular general fund if we can.
That's the cultural capital grant monies. It's from the cultural capital grant.
So my motion is amended to include that.
Perfect. All right, any discussion? Then all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
And thank you for getting that done.
Is there any other?
I just have a real brief couple of things that I'd like to see on an agenda before too long. One is what's going on with the AmeriCorps and the community rebuild discussion. I think that was supposed to be on this agenda, but it's cool. We're very busy, I know. And the same for the playground over at this CCC. Voting a grant to get that playground out of there. So there's no urgency on either one of those, I don't think, but like to see them on an agenda.
My recollection, and it could be faulty because it could be faulty. My recollection is we voted to spend the money to tear the playground down.
Great.
But I will double check. I think we voted. I think that I will accept responsibility for telling you that I have so many juggling things in the air right now that probably that fell to the lower level. But I will let that on the agenda next week, and we can talk about it at the work session. I'll try to make some progress on that.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second that. Great job, everyone. Budget, all this stuff.
Good.
It's 7:12. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. Have a good night, and anyone
Thank
thinking of running, get to the community center before 5 tomorrow. Thank you.
Thanks.
Right.